trying to interpret the Mishnah and it got very complicated, and I thought we'd spend half the class reviewing what we did 2 weeks ago. So let's start from scratch. Now, hopefully as time is going on, we're starting to get really a feel of how the Talmud really works. I mean, basically, you pick one verse in the Torah, not even based on the Torah, but the Mishnah is this compilation of many years of oral tradition coming through. They wrote the Mishnah in a very concise fashion, and the rest of the Gemara, now these terms should already be, known to us. So the Gemara, the Talmud part, is really trying to decipher and to really take apart and to understand what the authors of the Mishnah were trying to say. Now, it wasn't only really an exercise in logic, but as they try to explain and to understand, of course you want to extrapolate now, meaning that can we take from one Mishnah this understanding and move it on to other cases which the Mishnah doesn't deal with? I mean, we talk about goring, we talked about last time, we talked about goring, but didn't say anything about any of the other subsidiaries of goring. Oh, Dr. Curtin is here, so we have somebody else coming. Okay, we almost have we have now a half a million. No, there is one more. Oh, one more. Oh, I'm telling you. There you go, Helen. So now we begin to slowly but surely begin to understand, and the more you study it, the more the terms become familiar to us, like, Maishna, Teiku, and study. And that's really what the yeshiva world is all about. Every day going over and over. And I asked my son Levi, okay, so they're studying the Tractate of Shabbos this year. This is a full-time yeshiva. And they have two types of study. One is called Iyun, which they do very intensely. They go every line, trying to understand every line, learn every Rashi, every commentary, even commentaries in the back of the book. And they do maybe 15 to 20 pages a year, just on that. So 15, 20 pages. Then what they do in the afternoon is they have Girsa, where they just take another chapter of the same book and they go it quickly. They don't spend all that time. So between the two studies, you try to cover some ground on one sense, and you try to get to the nitty gritty on the second sense. We're only into Iyun. We're only into the first kind of study of getting to the deep part, because we only get through about 12 or 15 lines, a session, and that's really Iyun. I mean, we're like the best of the yeshivas, But that's really what it's all about. Now, the goal would hopefully be that if we really took this study seriously, and we'd be in a yeshiva where after a while, maybe a year, if we all study together, you'd be able to go and what we called in the yeshiva, do a laning. And a laning would mean to do it on your own, meaning without the English translation, to be able to do a piece of the Talmud. That would be that's the ultimate. And that's how basically they work it in yeshivas. Because the teachers don't really teach the words by now you've got to figure you're supposed to know something after studying this for 10 years. You're going to know something. What the teachers do is they say, okay, prepare this page, and then he comes in and gives a lecture about it. And he'll bring in different commentaries and different codifiers and different opinions and back and forth. So it's more like really a lecture style than actually learning inside the Talmud and the words. But we're not at that stage just yet. We're getting there. We're getting there slowly but surely, but we have still some time to go. Now,
in yeshiva, the students also study and give a lecture?
So it depends really how old. Like, for example, my son Moshe by now should be able to do what they call a pilpul. Pilpul meaning that he should be able to take a piece of Gemara, study it, understand it, get through the commentaries, and give a little talk about it. Not only what the words mean, but bring in other commentaries, ask questions. What do other commentaries say about it? And this is called a pilpul. Well, but that's in the lecture. That's what you're really doing. You're talking back and forth, giving different opinions. But it's one person doing the pilpulling rather than two people pilpulling together. Hi, Kenny.
Hola.
Here.
For me?
This is all for you. Okay. So tonight, we're going to start on page 5b, or daf, as they would call in Talmudic terminology, Hey Amud Beis. And we're going to start about 5 lines from the top. You see where the two dots are? About 5-6 lines. Ze yeshava she'en lo pachas michetzia. You see where that goes?
Oh,
Ze.
right here toward the, yes.
Yeah, Ze
Okay, got
yeshava.
it, got
Okay,
it.
everybody got that part? Jeremy, you got that part? Ze yeshava. Now you could follow along in the English, of course.
Okay.
Then you could follow along in the English also on the same same line.
Which page is the Hebrew page?
The Hebrew pages it would be 10. 10. So you're on 10,
He's right. Where is it? Right there.
right where the two dots are.
Got it.
Okay? So the two dots, normally the two dots symbolize a break in the previous talk, and then, we start a new thing. Now, remember, we go back. He's quoting the Mishnah here. He says, Zeh yeshava she'en li pachas mechetzia. So if two guys holding on to a talis, they come to court. Now the court administers an oath. What is the oath? The oath is that Zeh yeshava she'en li pachas mechetzia. This guy swears that he owns nothing less than a half. Okay, which is an odd way of wording it. And the Gemara now is going to try to understand, why did the Mishnah pick that wording? Why is the oath all about Zeh yeshava? This guy swears she'en lo pachas mechetzia, that he owns nothing less than half. There's other ways of saying that, right? Okay. Now is that okay? So then he goes like this. Like, right, exactly. Yes, yeah. There you go. Okay. All right. So now the Gemara asks like this: Al the islay mishtabay, does he swear on the part that belongs to him? Oi al the leslay mishtabay, or does he swear on the part that doesn't belong to him? Okay? Think about this for a moment. This is a really Talmudic question. Okay? You are now standing in court, and now you're asked to swear like this. There is Zeh yeshava she'en li pachas mechetzia. I swear that I owe nothing less than a half. Okay? Meaning, what does that mean? I owe nothing less than a half. So is he swearing that a half belongs to him and the other, or is he swearing that the other half belongs to the other guy? Okay? Is he swearing on the positive part, which belongs to him, or is he swearing that there's also a part that belongs to the other guy? Okay? What's the difference? So he says over here, the implication, it's interesting to read the commentary. The implication is that the terms of the oath are ambiguous. By swearing that his share in it is not she'ein loy, he does not have pachus less than half, the claimant might mean that it is not even a third or a fourth, which is less than half, and the negative way of putting it would justify such an interpretation by saying, I own nothing less than a half. What does exactly that mean? I own nothing less than a half. He could therefore take this oath even if he knew that he had no share in the garment at all, while he would be swearing falsely if he really had a share in the garment that is less than half, however small that share might be. Okay? So let's go over this again. Okay? By swearing that his share is not less than half, think about this for a moment, is not less than half, the claimant might mean that it is not even a third or a fourth. I swear that it is not less than a half. It's not less than a half. It could be a third, it could be a fourth, but it's not less than a half.
Suppose you said at least a half.
Oh, but it doesn't say at least.
Well, that's it.
You see, that's why he's saying
It's not
that-
less than, so it can't be a fourth, because a fourth is
But
less than
no,
half.
but wait a second. But what he's saying, it's not. You see, let's read it again. By swearing that his share in it is not less than half, the claimant might mean that it is not even a third or a fourth.
Oh, so
It is not even a third or fourth,
half.
which is less than half, and the negative way of putting it would justify such an interpretation. Meaning, he has nothing in it, right? He has no claim, and he's claiming it is not less than a half, meaning it's not a quarter, it's not a third, but it's not.
Don't even talk to me. If you're going to talk to me about something, don't even talk to me.
It's nothing. It's not right. He is nothing less, not less than a half.
Right.
Meaning, he swears that he doesn't own a fifth of it, or he doesn't own a third of it, he doesn't own a half of it. You see, by swearing negatively, he could own nothing in it and not be lying. Think about this for a moment.
Right, I don't
Right?
own less
Here,
than
I
that.
own nothing less than a half. Meaning, I don't own, he doesn't own anything in it. It could be interpreted, he's swearing because he doesn't really own anything. Jerry found it. Okay? I then ran over and I grabbed it. Okay? I grabbed it. Now I come to court and I say, yeah, back and forth, knowing that the oath on me is going to be that I swear that I own nothing less than a half. Meaning, I own nothing. It's true that I own nothing, and I'm not swearing falsely about it. Because I'm swearing that I'm not owning, not a quarter, not a third, not a tenth, not a hundredth. No, it could be.
It's a trick.
No, so that's why the Gemara it's not a trick, but the Gemara is asking a good question in it what is he swearing about? Why is it the negative interpretation? Is it mean that he's swearing on the half that he owns, or is he swearing on the half that he doesn't own? See, if he's swearing on the half that he doesn't own, meaning that he's telling the court clearly, I don't own anything, I don't own nothing less than a half. I swear to you, I own nothing less than a half. Meaning I don't own a quarter, I don't own a half. I didn't say I own the whole thing, but certainly I don't own anything less than a half. So there could be, it's ambiguous. Does everybody agree with me?
Only because it's two
You-
parties,
right? It's a very ambiguous here. You see, in the beginning, when we don't even think of it in those terms. When we first learned the Mishnah, we never thought in our wildest dreams that some guy is going to come up knowing that the oath is a negative way. So he's going to cheat, and he's going to lie, and he's going to grab the coat, knowing that he owns nothing in the coat, that it's really Jerry grabbed the coat. But I know that. What's the court going to ask me to do? To make an oath. And I'm going to take an oath saying what? I owe nothing less than a half, which is true. Because how much do I owe? Nothing. But I'm not contradicting myself, because I'm swearing to the truth.
You almost have a comma there. You could go, I own nothing less than half. You know,
Oh, that could also, but that could be a different interpretation.
Yeah.
That could be nothing. I own nothing. Like that.
Yeah.
That we find. You know where we find that? When the blessings of Jacob and Esau, right? And he says, "Who are you?" So he says, "I am me, comma Esau, your firstborn." Means, how do you interpret that to make that Jacob didn't lie? It is I, comma Esau is your firstborn. Not that I am Esau, your firstborn. But that's your interpretation. But that's a novel interpretation. That's not what he's saying here. He's saying here, because it's in a negative way, what you're really swearing is that you're swearing you own nothing. You own nothing on it. Because I certainly don't own a quarter, and I certainly don't own a half, and I certainly don't own a third, and I certainly don't own anything of it. Okay? So that's why the Gemara starts off by asking, on what are you swearing about? Are you swearing on the half that you own, or you're swearing? So he says, so Amr Rav Huna. So Rav Huna says, the Omar, okay? He has to say, Shvua sheyesh li bo. I swear that I have a share in it, ve'ein li bo pachas mechetzia. And it is not less than a half. Okay? So now Rav Huna revised it, because he saw that there could be what we call Ramoyim. Ramoyim is a Ramai. Ramai is a thief, a no-goodnik, a cheater. And he's going to come and he's going to come up with this interpretation. So Rav Huna changed it and said, no, you have to first say that you have a claim. And your claim is nothing less than a half. Okay?
Does that now mean that it's at least a half?
Yes. Now, because he says, first, I have something, yes. Because he says, the Shvua says, Shvua, he takes an oath, sheyesh li bo. I have an ownership in it. And the ownership part is nothing less than a half. Okay? So what does that do? That eliminates the ambiguity of the first oath. Because now he can't think in his mind, I own nothing. I own nothing. Because no, you're making a clear statement, I have ownership. But my ownership is nothing less than a half. Okay, so but the Gemara is still not satisfied with this. Why? Because why doesn't he just clearly say, I own half? You know what? I mean, why do you have to scratch your ear like this if you could scratch your ear like this, right? You're going up the roundabout way. So he keeps asking like this, V'neima, right? So now the Gemara asks, but let him say, Shvua shekule shali. Let him all swear that it is all mine. I swear it is all mine.
What is
Nema, let us say. V'nema, let us say. Shvua, he takes an oath. Shekula shali, that is all mine. So the Gemara says, Omi yahivnin la kula. So do we give him the whole? No, we can't make him take an oath that it is all his because we don't give him the whole thing. So why make him swear that he owns the whole thing? Because we're not really giving him the whole thing, right? How much are we giving him? Half. Okay. So then the Gemara says, okay, clearly, v'nema, let us say, shvua, he takes an oath, shechetz yishali, that half is mine, right?
No less than.
No, not no less than half, but half is mine. Okay? What's wrong with that? Why can't the Gemara just say, if two guys come into court, they're holding onto a garment, both of them don't refuse to give up on the ownership, the court makes them take an oath that I swear that half is mine. Okay? What's the problem with that? Think about this for a moment. If I'm going to make you take an oath that half is yours, you're going to say, I swear that half is mine. What does that mean? What am I doing to you?
Renouncing the other half.
You're renouncing the other half, meaning that you're hurting your argument. The oath is hurting your argument because you came into court and you were fighting for every single penny and you didn't want to give up a penny, and now they're making you swear that only half of it is yours. So if half of it is yours, what you're really doing is you're weakening your argument.
You're discounting yourself because you can't own half a pen.
No, you can't.
You either own it or you don't.
Exactly.
And this is really specifically between two parties, right? Because you couldn't have this situation with a third.
Yeah, it could be. Why not?
Right?
Why not?
Or
Sure, why not?
four.
Why not?
Yeah, only
Why not?
The math will be different.
That would be method. Sure, why not? But if four guys all grab it and they all say it would be exactly the same situation. Not just because it's two, it's just
because-
they just took it out of the figure.
We have a partnership in a shirt.
Yeah. You have 10 guys grabbing a shirt.
Look, it could
They
be
can
Siamese
find a
twins or
treasure.
identical twins.
They can
Right.
find a treasure and then all four of them.
Yeah, that's of course. You know, you could extrapolate it as much as you want. The principles will always remain the same as long as no one can prove. Remember, as soon as someone has a little bit of proof, then everything here what we talked about falls apart. But as long as we don't have proof, then of course everybody has an equal share in the pot. So it could be 10 people, 50 people, 20 people. It doesn't make a difference. As long as it has to be worth more than a penny. I mean, if it's less than a penny, the court's not going to bother. But if it's worth something, then the court is going to make you take an oath. But here, the Gemara is trying to wedge itself in. So if you say that you come to court and you take an oath that I have a share in it and I own half. So by saying those words, what you're doing is you're weakening your argument. You're weakening your argument. Okay? So therefore he says, so he says, Maralele deburi. We are what we do is, but we impair his words by allowing him to only say, I own half. We're impairing his words. Why? Because he really owns how much? Does he think he owns? The whole thing,
Otherwise he wouldn't be there.
Exactly. Okay. So the Gemara then asks a question. So if you're worried about impairment of argument, hashtonami here too, morale dibure, he would impair his own words because what's he saying? What's he saying?
That he owns all of it.
No. He doesn't say he owns all of it.
Saying all of it and swearing half.
No, he's not saying all of it. What he's saying is clearly what Rav Huna says is, I have a share in it, right?
Okay.
Sheyesh li bo. I own a share in it, and the share is not less than half. So what's the difference? I mean, your mom is splitting hairs here. You're really splitting hairs over here by saying, okay, the difference between saying I own nothing less than half and that I have a half is minuscule. Both of them are inferring what? Half.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're impairing his words by making him take an oath on the positive sense, why are you not impairing his words by making him take an oath on the negative sense? That I only have less than half? It's both. Both are impairing his words, meaning his argument is getting weaker. Okay? So now we're fine-tuning it right now. Okay?
It could also be that when they go into court, that if they say they own half, they already making a judgment for themselves, they can't swear to that. In other words, they go into court, they have a judgment made. If they say they own half, there's kind of making a judgment already. But they can't swear that.
You meaning if they claim I only own half?
If they swear they own half, they don't know if they own half yet or not, because they can't swear it's the truth yet. You come to court to get the truth. If the truth was they own half, they wouldn't need to go to court.
You mean so why do but then the same thing argument would be about less than half, right?
Right.
If I swear that I own nothing less than half, meaning, but I'm swearing also the same thing. I own nothing less than half. But how could I say that? I don't own anything yet on it.
Right, okay, yeah, but that's one from the other point of view, why you can't swear you own half, because you can't swear because you don't know if that's the truth or not, because the judge has to, the court has to decide if that's true or not. You can't swear something
Means
is
you-
true if you don't know it's true.
But you're swearing on a
You think it's
claim.
true,
But you're but what you're taking an oath is on the claim. You're always taking an oath on the claim. What's going to happen later on, that's going to be something different. The judges then might afterwards say, okay, you know what? Even though you took an oath, we believe, maybe witnesses come in and, bring witnesses. Or is just so don't, every oath is really taken only on the claim. The ultimate judgment is later going to be rendered. Okay, you swore this, you swore that. Now I'm going to give you each half. All right. So therefore, you have to. We're literally splitting hairs here, but that's what the Gemara is all about. Trying to figure out exactly how to deduce this. So then he says, okay. So here also he is impairing his words. Oh, okay. So the Gemara says no. The Amar Kule Shali. Because he says it is all mine, right? It is all mine. Uledivreichem. And he adds, but according to you, Shvua sheyesh li ba ve'en li pachas mechetze. I swear that I only have half. So now,
I say this under protest.
yes, exactly. So now the oath is a little bit different than when we first started off, right? So first we started off that he swears, I have nothing less than half. But the Gemara says that's not good enough because that's too ambiguous. So then the Gemara refined it by saying, no, you have to first put in a claim. You have to say, sheyeshli. I have ownership in it, I own nothing less than half. But that still isn't good because it's still impairing your words because you're only swearing that you have less than half, right? So now the Gemara says, no. What he says is like this. I swear that it's all mine. But according to you, who don't believe me, I am swearing that I only have less than half. Okay? So you hear what's going on over here now? According to me, what do I own? All of it. I don't want to give up one inch of the garment. But since you don't believe me, right? Since according to your words, you don't believe me, so I'm swearing that I own nothing less than half. So, but it's like this, I'm not even giving up part of the argument. But if I wouldn't give that preamble by saying it all belongs to me, then it could be that I'm hurting my case. Okay? So then he says, V'chi me'acher shezeh toifes v'oimid v'zeh toifes v'oimid. Now the Gemara takes another switch. And the Gemara says like this, since each one stands before the court holding the garment, shvu zeh lama. Why do you need the oath for? Right? Why do you need the oath? Okay, Mark and Kenny walk into court. They're both holding the garment. I say to them, I'm the judge. I say, will you give up ownership, Kenny? He says, no. I say, Mark, will you give up ownership of it? No. Kenny, how much do you own of it? Handle of it. I ask Mark, how much do you own of it? He says, all of it. Are you willing to split it, Kenny? You say no. Mark, are you willing to split it? You say no. It's all yours. No, there's no any compromises here. There's no compromise. Okay, so split it. Do you have any witnesses that you could bring to strengthen your case? No. Mark, do you have any witnesses to strengthen your case? No. Anybody else see anything that's going on here in the case? No. Nobody, only God knows. Okay, so listen. The only thing I can say to the two of you is, either one of you is lying and have to live with it for the rest of your life, or if both of you really claim and believe your claims, I'm going to take the coat and I'm going to split it. That's it. If neither of you can bring any other additional proof to why I should trust either of you, or why each one of you is more believable, split it. Right? Okay. So what do you need the oath for? What does the oath really do for us? Nothing. Right? It's not like I'm telling you, you know what, you took money out of my pocket, so I'm now suing you, and the oath is going to alleviate you from paying me. It's not going to alleviate. No, this doesn't alleviate anybody from paying anybody. All this does is split down the middle and thank you. It's not saying, okay, if you take it. Now, could we say that, maybe what's going to happen is really Kenny had it. Mark came along a little bit later, liked the shirt, grabbed it. Now, okay, so now we're going to say, oh, you know what? I'll put an oath. So the one, maybe Kenny is certain. There's no question. Mark is claiming 100%, but I see in his eyes that there is a small question. Maybe Kenny got there a minute before, baseball fans, right? I mean, whenever you ever play like in the park, so you throw to first base. Did the ball come first, or did the guy step on the bag first? Okay, it's a judgment call. There's no professional umpires. So one guy is adamant, no, he's out. The runner is claiming, Shema, I'm safe, but his conviction is not that strong. Who's going to win the argument? The first baseman, right? The first baseman, because he's adamant and he swears that this is happening. Okay, so maybe the oath is going to put a little fear. If the guy is not certain, maybe, okay, fine. Okay, so that could be one reasoning. But let's see what the Gemara says. So what do you need the oath? It says, Omer Rav Yochanan, so Rav Yochanan says, Shvua zu, this oath, takonas chachamim. This is an injunction from the rabbis. Okay, the rabbis instituted this oath. Why? That not everybody should go and seize the fellow's garment for Aimer Shalihu and says it's mine. Right? So what stops me from, I go down the beach and I grab Paul's towel, he's sitting there on the beach with his beautiful beach towel, and I say it's mine. Right? Paul, what are you talking about? Why is it yours? It's my towel. No, it's my towel. It's my towel. And I go to court, and the court says, okay, whose towel is it? It doesn't even seem that it's talking about finding it, right? It's here he's talking about seizing the towel. I mean, it's outright what? Theft. Here we're talking about outright theft. So now, and there's nothing Paul could do, right? Unless he has he doesn't have his name on it. He doesn't have any identifying characteristics to the towel. It's nothing. So I just ended up with a half a towel. Paul is screaming bloody murder. I came to the beach to enjoy myself, and this thief showed up and grabbed my towel. Okay, so what are they going to do, the judges?
Split it.
Right, split it. So what did I just end up getting 50% of a towel? I can make a good living this way. I go from beach to beach. I go to coat room to coat room. I start grabbing coats off the coat rack. Okay, and have a good day. So the rabbi said, oh, now we'll see. Now we'll put the oath on you. So what's the oath going to do?
You know you're a gun, are you not the kudah?
Oh, that's the question. Now see, here comes a fundamental issue. Here comes a fundamental issue that we're going to have to talk about. Okay? So what does this oath? So let's take this to its logical conclusion. Okay? What this Gemara is trying to say over here. And we'll see if it makes any sense. Because in a second you'll see it doesn't make much sense. Mr. Ray is walking down the street. Okay? There comes Mr. B, he's carrying a nice coat. Okay? Mr. Ray looks at the coat and figures to himself in a very quick decision that he's going to go after the coat, and he's a thief. So he runs and he grabs the coat and says, oh, look what I found. A says, what do you mean you found it? It's my coat. I bought this coat in Nordstrom. Do you have a receipt? No. Do you have anything? No. Do you have proof it's yours? No. No proof. Okay? So what is A? What is he? A thief, right? We all agree that A is a out and out thief. Okay. So now, what did the rabbis do? So the rabbis instituted now a oath. So they come to court. Okay, they come to court. A and B are standing there. They're both arguing vociferously that the coat belongs to them. A is also, not only is a thief, but he has to be also a good
Liar.
A good liar. He has to be a good apikoris, but he also has to be a good actor, right? A good liar. Because he has to come to court convincing the judge that it's his coat. I mean, how many people have the bald-faced chutzpah to come to a court and to say, this shirt is mine? I mean, you have to be a bald-faced chutzpahniak liar, thief, to come to court in front of three rabbis or whatever there's a bezdin, to say in front and look in their eyes and to say, and knowingly it's not yours. You have to be a bald-faced liar, right? Yeah. I mean, that's chutzpah, right? That is ultimate chutzpah. Like that's like Mrs. Teitelbaum. You know the story with Mrs. Teitelbaum on the bus? She's sitting on the bus, and she, it's a hot day, and she's standing there, and the bus is crashed. She looks at this guy, and she says, if you had what I have, you'd give me that seat. Oh, of course, so you can sit down, you can take the seat, of course. Then she looks at the guy, Jerry's drinking a nice big diet Pepsi. She looks at Jerry, says, Jerry, if you would have what I have, you'd give me that drink. Of course, gives her the drink. Then Mrs. Kern, if you had what I have, you'd give me your newspaper that you're reading. And she's sitting there drinking the drink and reading the newspaper. Then she decides to get off. So she rings the bell, and she stands there to the bus driver, says, Mrs. Teitelbaum, it's not a stop yet, it's in the middle of the stop. So she looks at him and says, bus driver, if you had what I have, you'd let me off right now. Oh, such words. He stops the bus. She goes down the stairs, and he says, Mrs. Teitelbaum, what do you have? She says, chutzpah. Okay? So therefore, this guy has to have exactly the same type of chutzpah to go ahead and to steal a coat outright. So now I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, does it make sense? This guy, who's a bald-faced, we all agreed he's a thief, he's a bald-faced lawyer and a good actor. And what's going to stop him from doing this?
Fear of God. You think?
What?
Fear of God.
Yeah, but he doesn't have one.
Fear of God?
He
Isn't
stole,
I mean-
he lied.
But he would get in front of this same judge, and finally, wouldn't the judge say, Perelmuter, you're a frequent visitor to my courtroom.
Well, if the guy is smart, he doesn't do it on a weekly basis.
Well, no, but
You
in
can
those
also-
days,
you
I
can be
mean,
sure this isn't the first time. He's not a rookie thief here.
But-
Someone who does this does it.
Right, so you're strengthening my argument, right?
Well, I'm
You're
saying-
strengthening the argument. Will the oath help?
No.
Oath won't help.
in,
No,
in,
but
in
what
today's
about-
world,
Right.
we would track a Nordstrom frequent returner
Right.
on a computer.
Is that true?
A shoplifter.
Is
on
that
a-
true? Is that true that they track those
Oh,
people
yeah.
who do frequent returns?
Of course they do.
I'm asking this for really, yeah? Because I know people that do this for a lot, not my family, but I know, no, God, I would kill them. I would kill them.
wife
No,
is beautiful
not my
on
wife,
Sunday.
not my, no, she's not a frequent
You
returner.
know-
But I know people who do that all the time, and I'm wondering, do they track it?
You can stop the camera.
Yeah, no. Do they do this?
My brother worked there for a while, and they do. They keep, and I could name some names of some prominent people in the city of Long Beach and Lakewood that are.
Frequent returners. And do they stop?
Renter. They call it the Nordstrom
Renter.
rental program.
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but
But going back here,
but my point was we can establish a pattern because we track that kind of stuff. In those days.
you're probably not
the
tracking.
old-
You go from city to city.
There was no-
There's no city to city. The
But
guy
they
could
do
go
that.
around. He doesn't do it very often. There's sure a guy who comes into court every week. We're going to start questioning him.
Wonder what the hell
Wonder, of course, what's going on. Obviously, but here's a case. Here's a case of where the rabbis are thinking, at least in their minds, that an oath between man and God is going to put the fear of him, so he's going to stop doing that.
When was this written?
No,
How many thousands of years ago?
2,000 years ago.
It might have. Today?
Maybe.
Today, I don't think so.
No.
An oath means
But
nothing.
even then, a guy who lied and stole and all this, there is no fear of God.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, but you can't assume he'd be a murderer also.
Yeah, and on top of all this, he
Where'd
will
that come
swear
from?
and be afraid.
I'm saying, how far can you extend if he okay, he's a thief. I say, okay, well, he's probably probably oaths don't mean anything to him.
Yeah.
How about killing somebody?
He's a
You know,
shoplifter,
where-
a
where
thief,
do
a
you- where do you
murderer?
stop that? Expand-
So it's interesting because we're going to see something, and we'll get into a little debate about this.
When he's
Let's go a little bit further. Let's go a little bit further in the Gemara.
Identified Republican,
Okay?
That's where it stops.
Oy Vezmir. Don't say that here in this show. You never know who's listening. You know.
What's wrong?
So he says. So the Gemara says. So what does it say? Takanas Chachamim. It's an institution of the rabbis. Shlo yikol echad ve'echad haylich v'toikiv. Not everyone should go and seize b'talisha shel chaveri, his friend's talis. V'oimer, and he's going to say shalihu. It's mine. So then the Gemara says, "V'neima, let us say, migui dechashid amamayna chashid nami yashvuasa." Let us claim that one who is suspect of money, of financial misdealings, should also be suspect on vows, on oaths. Right?
So
The
then
Gemara asks that.
If he's a liar.
If he's a lawyer, if he's a thief, the Gemara says lie. No. Lo yamrin, we don't say, migui dechashid amamayna chashid atzvuasa. We don't say that. Okay? To us, it makes perfect sense. Right? To us, it makes perfect sense. But to them in those days, it seemed that perjury was a greater sin than robbery. Okay? Perjury is a greater sin than robbery. And let's stop here for a moment to think about this for a second. There's two sins here that are being committed. One is bein adam lachaverei, and one is bein adam lamakom. One is between man and man, and one is between man and God. Okay? What the Gemara is saying here is that in those days, and we'll see how it translates today, in those days, perjury, which was really a sin against God, it's not a sin against man, it's really a sin against God, is a greater sin, greater than a sin between man and man. Why? Because those days people were thieves, ganavim, chazerim, but they were afraid that God is going to get them superstitious. Let's call it that. Not superstitious in the sense of superstition, but you know what? They were afraid. They were afraid that God is going to get them. More God-fearing in this sense. So they figured if they break swear in God's name, who knows what's going to happen. We find this in many cultures, right? Find this in many cultures. You know what? You can do a lot of things, but swearing, that I'm not going to do. I'm not going to take God's name in oath. But you know what? You're an adulterer, you're a thief, I draw the line. Okay, I draw the line. I'm not gonna steal from the church. Okay? Why not steal from the church? No, this I can't do. You steal from everywhere else. I draw the line. Okay. Today we had an interesting debate. Okay? Cheating in school. You're a teacher. Okay?
We have a big deal now.
Okay? You're a teacher in school. Okay? Someone was caught cheating. Okay? You have now two different perspectives on this. Okay? On one perspective, we say, okay, cheating. Listen, who doesn't cheat in class? I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Cheating is prevalent in sports. Prevalent in society, right? You cheat in sports. People take steroids. You cheat on your taxes. You cheat other ways. What's the speed limit here? 65? Who goes 65? Who's 65? What?
Whatever the market will bear.
Right? No, but the law says 65. But who's?
It depends.
Well, what? So you go 75. See, everybody's cheating. So in one sense, what's going on in the mind of the people is that cheating, you know what? Even though it's not proper, but it's no. Let's take eating chazer. Let's take now eating chazer. Okay? Let's take eating pork. Right? Eating pork to an Orthodox Jew is what? Death. Right? Who would eat pork? Who would eat pork? Okay, so now take it to its logical conclusion. So if you're in a classroom and you're an Orthodox person and you cheat, okay, all right, it looks that way. But if you eat pork, no, that's not going to happen. Now, does that make any sense? Is that logical in any sense? No, right? So to the outside person, and we're talking about to the non-Orthodox person, this makes no logical sense. Why? Because what is cheating? Cheating is really a sin between man and man, right? Not really. It's really man and man, because cheating is you beat the other guy out you're fooling your teacher, you're beating the other guy out in grades, you're going to get the promotion. It's a sin between man and man. Right? Cheating. You're cheating your fellow, right? You don't pay your taxes, you're cheating the government. It's laws. You're breaking human laws, right? Eating pork is?
Who handed us the laws, though? There are 613 commandments that were handed down by
God,
and if we break one of them, who are we breaking?
But of course, you're always breaking a divine law. But there's some laws that God gave us that we should deal honestly between people. And there's some laws that we deal directly and only exclusively with God.
Just checking.
Right? So there's a logical and there's a non-logical laws, right? So to an outsider looks at it and says, hypocrites, right? This is hypocritical. Because see, they're not going to eat pork at no chance. No way, no chance. You bring pork in, they're going to make a tumult, they're going to fight to the death not to eat the pork, the ham. But cheating. So every time we have in the newspaper a story of an Orthodox guy who ripped somebody off on 47th Street, let's say in Manhattan, in the Diamond District, it's a big story, right? Why? Because they're held to a higher standard.
Right.
Okay? So this debate was going on today, and this is exactly what the Talmud is trying to ascertain over here. So in those days, when the rabbis instituted this oath, their belief was, no, the guy's not going to perjure himself. He's just not going to. So if it comes down to the bottom line, even the guy, the thief, if we place this oath upon him, is going to back off. It's going to back off. Okay? That's those days. And how do we translate it to today? So we have to be very careful. And that's why I always say to people who wear a yarmulke outside on the street, you have to not only walk a straight path, but you've got to walk 110% straight path. Why? Because not only if you're caught doing something immoral or illegal, what you've done is not only have you sinned against man, but you've desecrated God's name. Right? Now, okay, of course, because you're wearing a yarmulke. Like this. You represent Yiddishkeit. You represent Judaism. Now, we've always talked about you should never mistake Jews for Judaism. Because Judaism is a wonderful religion and Jews are just human beings that are regular and they're frail. So don't look at the Judaism that people adhere to, because if you're going to look at a Judaism of a typical Jew, look at him, guy probably speeds and cheats on his taxes and lies. So I can say this is Judaism. So that's always been an adage of never judge a religion by its adherents. Just like I don't judge Christianity by Pat Robertson, right? That's not Christianity. That's Christianity-ism. He's like a jihadist. He's a Christianist. Okay, they take the Christian, and there's many others like that. All right? So here is the same thing. Here is where the Gemara is testifying, and we're drawing that line. Here the guy will cross, and here the guy won't cross. Now, it's strange, because you would think if the guy has fear of heaven, what should he also have? Here it's really breaking a law, breaking the law. Yeah, but he doesn't. He doesn't, because he justifies it in a number of different ways, and that's what we do. You see, when we cheat in class, what do we say? Who are we hurting?
Nobody.
Right? You're not hurting. You're not hurting anybody. What are you doing?
You're displacing somebody else on the curb.
Okay, but you don't think of it that way.
No.
You're thinking of yourself. You're saying you're not really hurting anybody, right? And if you cheat in your taxes, you underpay by $200. Well, you know what the U.S. government's budget is? Trillions. What's $200 in a $10 trillion budget? Nothing. They're not going to miss your $200. So you justify it by saying, come on. And then, of course, you always say everybody cheats, right? Everybody cheats on their taxes. Just like speeding. You speed and you don't say to yourself, oh, look at that, I'm so happy I'm speeding. Look at me, I'm speeding. No, you're speeding because everybody else is. So, because if you drive, I can guarantee you drive 65 on, not on a day like today where traffic was crazy going home today. But if you drive on a Sunday morning at 65, you know what you'll get? Don't ask.
Maybe.
Honk. People will be honking you and worse than just honking you, right? So you got to speed up, and you justify telling yourself everybody does it, right? Everybody does it. Like an easy target would be today. What would be an easy target today? I held myself almost 50 minutes. The oil prices, right? The oil company, the oil companies. So if you could steal from Exxon, not Mark's company, but if you could steal from Exxon, make $10 billion last quarter, you would justify by saying what? Come on.
It's the adjustment from
Right?
summer to
Right.
winter.
No,
That's not cheating.
No, I know, I understand. But if you had a chance, if people had a chance, all of a sudden there would be no gas attendants, and we'd be able to run and then steal the gas. We justify it by saying, good on them, right? Good for them. They rip off us. We're going to rip them off right now. And I tell you, think people wouldn't do it? People would do it and justify themselves by doing it. Justifying that we're stealing from Exxon. No, and Exxon stole from us. That's what's called legal corporate stealing, right? That's thievery, legal corporate. So this is called legal corporate proletariat stealing. Okay, the proletariat is getting back at the bourgeoisie.
Membership dues for Exxon employees only.
Right, yeah. There you go. There you go. Now, what really scares me, just a sidebar. What scares me is that GM is running this
Free gas free.
not free gas, $1.99.
Oh,
$1.99, which means that they've certainly made a decision that it's definitely not going below $1.99. Obviously, right? Otherwise, what would be the incentive? Because if we ever believed that prices would go below $1.99, then I'd be the biggest idiot to buy a car. Right?
Yeah, they're not dickering.
But is that true?
No, if that goes below $1.99, then they're off the hook.
Oh, right, they're smart, right?
Yeah.
In a way, but they probably believe that gas is not.
They think they're giving an incentive.
It's an incentive that, it'll go down. Maybe it'll go down to 270, 280.
No,
But
it's still a business.
yeah, that's a business. I mean, listen, that's the way it works. That's the way it
You're
goes.
not getting anything off on that automobile for $1.99 gas as a perk, though.
No, but I think to myself, what's the big savings? I mean, you know what? I mean,
They're not going to discount the price. If they're giving you either that or they got that gas dirt cheap or the gas is
right.
water.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the gas is. But you see, so here it's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting dichotomy that we find within people, because on one hand you won't eat pork, but you'll have absolutely no problem. I'm saying you. I'm talking about the general you will have absolutely no problem in cheating or lying or being dishonest in business and ripping somebody off. I mean, it's unusual. It's very unusual, because seemingly it would be the other way around. You see, I'd be more afraid of being caught cheating, the embarrassment. But who cares if would someone really care if I ate in the In-N-Out burger?
Yeah.
Well, who would care? I mean, if I went tonight and I was sitting in the In-N-Out burger and you saw me sitting over there, so you'd say, okay, the rabbi, yes, he's weak-willed, and he's a fat chazer, which is true, and he has absolutely no willpower on what he eats, and it finally got to him, and he flipped out, and he's eating, so what? Would you think anybody here in Shul would convert to Christianity if I did that? Let's be honest. Nobody. What would they say? What?
They will fire you.
They'll fire me?
Actually, you probably see more people over there from the shul, because if the rabbi can eat there, I can eat there.
Right. Which is
Rent the place for a kid.
exactly. Which is exactly right. But what are the ramifications? But what would they say if all of a sudden I took $500 out of the pushka? I started shoving it in my pocket and running. I mean, I would be more embarrassed that way. Wouldn't I be more embarrassed? I mean, it would be, to me, would be a much worse sin stealing that. Okay, so eat treif. I mean, it's a bad sin, don't get me wrong, and I'm not justifying eating treif. But in reality, I'm only hurting myself, really by doing that. How if I got in my car on Shabbos and drove away? After service, I got so disgusted one week, I said, I can't take it anymore. I get in my car, I drive away. You what?
Nobody clapped.
Nobody clapped. The Chadaidi was dead that week or whatever. I'm finished. I get into my car, I drive away. So who am I hurting? Me. So to me, it would be the flip side, would be to me the big incentive, not the oath. I'll take the oath, but I'm afraid that everyone is going to, the fear of human beings catching me is much worse. I mean, think of the insult and of being caught cheating. I mean, they take you, drag you down to the principal's office, they call your parents, you have to sit there, you have to justify this. It's embarrassing. At least in my days it was. And the truth of the pudding is, what's the worst thing about speeding? The worst feeling that you could get? When those lights behind you, isn't that the worst feeling? They pull you, and I've done that a number of times. No, I've been the recipient, not the cop, but I've been the recipient of that. It's the worst. It's the absolutely worst feeling. So, but here in these times, it tells us a little bit about society, right? Not a little bit, but it tells us a lot about society. That thievery, who cares, right? But swearing to God, no, that I'm not going to do. So it's an interesting viewpoint on what's all about. It's, for example, I just read recently, we're learning now in the Rambam, we're studying the laws of the Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin has to judge the court cases, and sometimes it's capital cases. Capital cases are very serious cases. You're going to put a guy to death. Especially, it tells you that as soon as the rabbis convicted him, that day he was killed. When there's no appeal process, there's no appealing. I mean, he was, they said guilty, and now from the court, they let him out to where he was going to be killed, and they killed him. Now, on the way there, someone came up with a reason why he should not be killed, but you have about an hour, basically. You don't have 20 years to appeal. Okay? What happened? About 40 years before the destruction of the temple, they stopped judging capital cases. Why? There were too many capital cases. There was too much murder. So when murder was rare, and people cared and were worried about it, so what happens? Everybody. Then the courts have an incentive, and he writes clearly that don't be afraid. It says, because the argument against here, so of the anti-death penalty people, and I'm not going to get into the argument here, but anti-death penalty people, what is one of their argument is? What are you going to kill them for? Say he killed somebody, so you're going to kill him. Is that going to bring back the victim alive? So the Rambam writes in the comment in his book of law, don't listen to that kind of argument, because the mitzvahs will be uviyarta hara mikirbecha. You have to get rid of the evil inside within you. This guy is evil. Has nothing to do with the victim. Has nothing to do with rehabilitation. Has nothing to do with any of that. Don't look at any of that. What it has to do is getting rid of the evil. He's evil. He's dead. He has no right. He gave up his right to live by doing it. Thank God. And I knew, I just knew that Zarqawi was going to be killed on a Jewish holiday. You know how? You know why? Because the day Zarqawi's dead is a Jewish holiday. Okay. And that's it's automatically a Jewish holiday. It's automatically a Jewish holiday. But you know what? With a guy like that, it's not a question of trying to rehabilitate him or saying, we'll go after Zarqawi. Is that going to help any of the 2,500 American GIs killed? Of course not, it's going to help. But he's an evil guy. You have to kill him for the fact that he's evil, not because of any other reasons. But what happens if there's now a plethora of murders? Everybody's murdering, and there's no. So the courts just didn't have enough time to judge. Same thing is true about one of the mitzvahs we had in today's portion. Very interesting mitzvah, sota, right? The wayward woman. So if a wayward wife goes ahead, the husband accuses her of adultery, she drinks to make, we are well familiar with the rules of the sota. Okay? Well, there's a today in the parsha, this week's parsha. So if a man accuses his wife of adultery, meaning no one saw that she committed, but he warned her. He said, I don't want you hanging around with that guy. And there were witnesses that they went into a hotel room. No one saw that they had actually committed anything, but they saw them hanging out together. So the husband drags her up to Jerusalem. And the Kohen tells her, were you warned? Yes. Did you commit adultery? No. But you were warned. Yeah. Okay, so now no one knows. Only God knows. So what they do is they take God's name, and they take a little bowl, fill it with water, take some of the dirt from underneath the altar, they put it in the bowl. They take God's name, which he had written out with like quill, puts it in the water, it dissolves. The ink dissolves, so now you have a mixture of what? Of water, ink, and dirt. She drinks this. She drinks it. Okay? Now what's this thing supposed to do? Now we wait. So if she sinned, she'll blow up. Okay? She'll literally blow up, right? Isn't that what it says in the things? Her stomach blows up, her everything falls out. I don't know. I don't want to get into the biology of it, but it's weird, okay? She goes. But if nothing happened, what happens? She's okay. Not only is she okay, but it says she's blessed. Rashi says she's blessed because now her husband accused her falsely, and she passed the test. So if she had a tough time giving birth, she'll give birth easily. If she had this kid, doesn't have this kind of kids, fine. Okay. When does this work? You know when this works? This only works in one condition. If everybody in society buys into this, if she believes, and everybody believes that the mei sota, the water of the wayward woman, will work, yeah, what if everybody starts now hanging out? What if adultery is prevalent? Think it's going to work, the mei sota? Absolutely not. Who cares? Right, who cares? No one's going to care. So once there was already people that were acting immorally, the whole idea of sota fell apart. Because no one cares anymore about it. You think today, you go to a Jewish woman, today and say, okay, you know what? You've been accused, member of Temple Israel. Take a member of Temple Israel and say, you were accused of hanging out with this guy. We're going to give you the mei sota. You think it's going to work? The mei sota can't last. No one cares about the mei sota. No, it's a joke to everybody. Once it turns into a joke, it's not going to work. Because what happens? What if she doesn't die? Okay? So if she doesn't die, because if she dies, okay, great, whoa, it worked, okay? The process worked. If she doesn't die, does this prove that she wasn't an adulteress? No. All that proves is that the water didn't work. Like I saw a bumper sticker. Pray, it always fails. Wow, I had never seen such a bumper sticker. Prayer, it always fails. Wow. I looked at this, he had a whole bunch of other bumper stickers, but I was so shocked by that bumper sticker, because you never see something like that. That's so in your face, right? Because usually pray, or, the family that prays together, stays together, all these Christian bumper stickers. But this one was so in your face. And you know what? It makes you think. It made me think. Right? Prayer, it always fails. So this guy obviously has a chip on his shoulder, obviously doesn't like God very much, or once had a problem with prayer, and now he's announcing it to the world. But that's the problem with prayer, right? Because if it fails once, what do you say? So if you have a sick parent and you prayed for their well-being and it didn't work, so what are you going to say? Oh, right? Why pray? Why bother praying?
If it works a lot of the time, that's indistinguishable from chance,
Exactly. Exactly.
even if it works most of the time.
So this is where it's at. So this is a really great commentary. We see here a commentary that in those days, at least at this particular time, when this was written, we see where people's values were. We see where the people's values. Because it doesn't say only about a thief, right? It doesn't say only about a thief. Look at what the Gemara says. If you go back a couple of lines, when it says he says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, go back just a couple of lines to where Rabbi Yochanan, you see where Rabbi Yochanan is quoted? Rabbi Yochanan answered, the oath is an institution of the sages intended to prevent people from going out and seizing their fellow's garment. See, he uses his words clearly. He doesn't say, what should it say there? It should really read, the oath is an institution of the sages intended to prevent, what's the next word? Thieves. So it would prevent thieves from going out and seizing their fellow's garment. It doesn't say that. It says it goes out to prevent people, right? People, anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody's capable of doing that. You see it, you grab it, you go to court, you have nothing to lose. You say to yourself, look, guy's rich anyways, Kenny's a rich guy. He's going to, he has this, he owns that, he owns this, he owns the telephone company, right? We'll seize his garment, who cares?
I'm the T in 18.
From going out and seizing their fellow's garment, declaring it to be their own. Then the Gemara says, but should we not say that since he is suspected of fraud in money matters, he also should be suspected in swearing falsely, which makes sense to us, right? Because the Gemara at this time was already very different. Because already, maybe in Babylon it was a totally different culture. We do not say that one is suspected of fraud in money matters must also be suspected in swearing falsely. And if you look at number 9, very closely, the word small, he says perjury is regarded as a greater crime than robbery. Now, I'm not sure here. Perjury could be, a felon, and sometimes robbery is only a misdemeanor. So sometimes even here in America too, if you perjure yourself in court, could be a bigger offense than stealing. I mean, you walk into a bakery and you steal a loaf of bread, could be a misdemeanor, third-class misdemeanor. I'm not sure. I'm just saying, I'm not sure if it's a felon. I don't know. But perjury, and I'll tell you, is a felon, in court, and it's a very serious matter. So even here in America, we might also sometimes find, I'm sure you could find cases where robbery and this and that is of a less stature than perjury, but it's not as an open-ended statement as this. This is just an open-ended statement, okay? Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the great authors of the Mishnah, great student, great author of the Mishnah, told his students on his deathbed, may you have the fear of heaven like you have the fear of people. Right? May the fear of heaven be as strong to you as the fear of people. So he took it. So he already said. He said, because that makes to me perfect sense, because we're certainly not going to do in public what we would do in private, right? In public, we'd be worried about what we say, how we act, how we eat, all of these things. But in private, forget about it. Even though we know, and his students understood that God is everywhere. Lashem ha'aretz hamloi, God is everywhere, fills the earth. So why, if I'm a true believer, if I really have faith in God, why would I be a hypocrite? Why would I come outside and speak so nicely, oh, Mrs. Kern, you're such a good, wonderful, nice person, back and forth. But inside my own house, I'm saying, oh boy, she's such a nudnik, she drives me crazy, all these questions and everything like that. Why do that? Why wouldn't I fear heaven? Because, okay, so that's a natural thing, because we're embarrassed, because we're small people and our faith is not that strong. It's not Moshe Rabbeinu who was echad, but had the same in his heart as he had the same outside. So we're small people. So in the privacy of our own home, we do things differently. Okay, I can understand that, but thievery is harder for me to believe. But it's obviously it's common. I mean, and there were areas where there was more common thievery, there was more common murder, there was more common idolatry. Different places in Israel had different things going on. Well, okay. Any questions until here? No? Okay. So we say forward and onward.
So I do have a question. So Rabbi Yochanan, it means Yochanan ben Zakkai.
No, this is a different Rabbi Yochanan.
Different Yochanan.
Yeah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would always be referred to as Yochanan ben Zakkai. And this Rabbi Yochanan is different. This Rabbi Yochanan is different.
So when Yochanan ben Zakkai said it to his students, have the fear of I wish you would have the fear of men like you have the fear of, no, don't.
Yeah. You should have the fear of heaven like you have the fear of man. Meaning that, you know what, even in privacy between you and God, you should fear Him like you fear other people.
So that shows that already people behave like almost today.
Yeah, outside, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's common. That doesn't change in societies.
But
That's
here,
always
according
true.
to this, yes.
But no, but here's different. Here he's saying that stealing, that is less of a problem than perjury. Doesn't mean that I'm less worried about what human beings are going to say, because in stealing, no one knows that I'm a thief, right? It's not like I'm going, hey, watch this, Jerry, my shirt. I'm not doing that. I'm doing it, of course, behind everybody's back and doing anything. But that is less of a problem to people, and be able to justify it more than justifying perjury. Right?
Because it's a clear-cut act. If somebody steals something, you know that's it, he stole. When you perjure yourself, then you're completely not sure of anything he ever said was true, who he is, how he represents himself.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's
Here
nobody
they
really
did have the
standing
fear
there.
of God, even if we
It had the fear of God
cheating,
more
lying, and all this.
in this case than in the stealing. More in this case than in the stealing. I think the oath was to them more serious, more sacred than stealing. That's okay? Okay. Then he says, the Eloi Tema Hachi. Now the Gemara is going to bring a proof to this, because at first you want to reject this. You want to say, what are you? No, it's crazy. The Eloi Tema Hachi, because if you don't believe this, that this is true, right? The divine love. We ought to say this since he's specified. I'm sorry. For this not because how could the divine lay down on him? Okay, fine. The Eloi Tema Hachi, if this is not true, how could the Torah tell us that someone who claims only half has to take an oath? Meaning, the case is, Mark comes over to me. He says, I'd like you to repay me my $100 that I lent you. I say, you only lent me 50. And here's the 50. Comes to court, sues me. I go to court. Mark says he lent me 100. I say he lent me 50. What's the rule in the Gemara? From the Torah's point of view, I have to take an oath. Now, Mark can't prove it. Obviously, if Mark can prove it, either through a document, somehow, if you can prove it that you did lend me 100, obviously my arguments fall aside. If you have witnesses or if you have a contract, but we were friends, and you thought you could trust me. Obviously, that's the last thing in the world you want to do. Obviously, and you trusted me, and then I only claim half. So I have to take an oath. I take an oath that I only owe you half, and sorry, I walk clear. There's nothing you can do about it. You're only going to collect half of the money. Well, if we say that if I'm a suspect, right? Because how does the court look at me? And I'm a thief. Why would Mark lie? I don't know. Mark's going to come into court, just claim that they lent me money. So I'm a suspect that I'm a thief. So if I'm suspected that I'm a thief, what shouldn't I be able to do?
Swear.
Exactly. So obviously, the Torah also believed that when it came to taking an oath, that's where I would draw the line. So even if I was a bald-faced lawyer and I could do it in court, and I had the chutzpah to come into court when I knew that Mark lent me $100, but I'm only going to pay him back 50. Okay, so he's capable of doing.
It's a very delicate sort of theft, isn't it?
Well, there's a delicate.
I'm not a real thief, I just took half of it.
You see, because I could justify it in my mind. Why could I justify this in my mind? Because I could say to myself, you know what? I'll pay him back later. I don't have it. So instead of being humbled and saying, I don't have it, what do? I say, yeah, you only lent me 50. Now I'm backed up into a corner, so I want to swim out of it. Okay, so there's a justification in my mind going now. Am I a thief? Yes. Should I admit it? Yes. But here you see from the Torah's point of view that even there also it draws the line, right? It draws the line. It says, you know what? He will lie and he will cheat, but he won't Swear falsely. You won't swear falsely. Okay? So, otherwise there's no way I could take an oath. And there's no way really anybody could take an oath. If you think about it, right? Come into court, someone's lying. Right? Someone is lying over here. The case can't be, what, if you say something and you would say something back and forth, someone is telling a lie. But still, we're believing you. So even in that fact, that I administer an oath to someone that is, I suspect of cheating, what am I saying?
Are you giving him the benefit of the doubt?
I'm kind of saying to myself exactly what the Gemara says. That he will justify his mind in cheating and stealing, but he won't lie. At least take an oath. All right? So that's true about any case in the Talmud, right? When we picked about one case from where the Torah talks about Moide b'miktas chayev b'shvua. If someone is moide, someone admits that he owes only half of what he's accused of owing, then he has to take an oath. But then the same thing happens. How could you take an oath if we don't trust you? So I could justify my mind when it comes to money matters. If I took a loan of $1,000 from Bill Gates, right?
Yeah.
Is he going to miss it? No. Right, Jerry? He won't miss it.
In the judgment of the judges at this time and the mindset, and knowing people are going to cheat, and they're going to steal and everything, and they're going to lie, but they might not tell an oath. Were the judges trying to keep the people from just saying, man, let's not take it that far that you are going to take an oath and blow it? Were they trying to keep them from sinning?
Well, what they were trying to do is keep him from sinning by taking the oath.
That's what I mean.
That's right, exactly. Right. They were trying to make the oath as serious as possible. Trying to say that, I might justify it, but if I have to come into a court of law and I have to take an oath in front of everybody, then I might think twice about it. Okay, it's the kind of the fear of God, the fear of the whole system, the fear of the court system that might make you think twice. Okay? It's like the IRS. Think about the IRS. IRS in Hebrew, how would you say IRS in Hebrew? Yud, Resh, Shin, right? Think about that. What is it, right? IRS would be Yud, Resh, Shin. You know what that stands for? Yirah Shamayim, the fear of heaven. So no one thought about that, right? Okay, so the fear of heaven is IRS in English. Why? Because what does the IRS try to do? It has this mechanism called an audit. Now, is it going to audit 200 million tax returns? No. So what do? They pick certain zip codes, right? They pick, let's say, 90807. They'll take 90807, they'll say, we'll audit 1% of the people. What's the purpose of doing that? Because they know that on Amelia Street, right? On Amelia, we have 20 houses. If 2 guys on Amelia get audited, what's the word? We're getting audited. So the IRS has targeted 90807. So what's the other 18 families going to do? Pay their taxes very loyally, right? And that's the thinking of the IRS. So so they're not going to audit a guy who makes $20,000 a year. But a doctor, if you have an MD, it could pull up a flag. Or if you happen to be writing off $1 million this year in some tax laws, bing, that raises a flag. But it's all the same. It's all the same thing as the rabbis try to do. They try to instill a kind of a fear that if they catch enough little points here, there, and there, they'll connect the dots. And they know that people are going to cheat. They know that everybody in America is working out to pay less taxes. Does anybody run January 1st with a check to the government? Have you seen ever one person running January 1st with a check to President Bush and saying, I'm so proud to pay my taxes here, President. I want to give you a check and a shake my hand. No one does that. Everybody waits till when? April 14th, 11:58. Right? There's a long line on Redondo Boulevard, trying to throw the tax returns in. That's why we have accountants, right? But that's the same idea here. So the oath.
The blue line. The blue line works like that.
Oh yeah, but it's
You're supposed to buy a ticket.
right.
Once in a while, those people will come through with all uniforms and check everybody's ticket. Once in a great while, but you see it. And from the fact that they'll go through the car and look at everybody's ticket and then go to the next car, and I have yet to see anybody pull up, I assume that it's working pretty well. Nobody in there is saying, well, I'll just take my chances.
Right, yeah, because that's what it is. And that's what it is. It's what we call a mashgiach. Sometimes you have in a restaurant, you need a mashgiach tmidi, you need a full-time supervisor, and sometimes you only need a nichnas v'yoytze, meaning someone goes in and goes out, right? Nichnas v'yoytze. What's the nichnas v'yoytze do? What is the guy who goes in and out? What does he do? Because you never know when the guy's going to come in, right? He comes in unexpectedly, so the element of surprise. So the chances are the guy's not going to run out to buy a Vaughn's chicken and substitute it for an Empire chicken, while the mashgiach is not there. Because if the mashgiach shows up and he finds the Vaughn's chicken there, then you're up the creek. Then you're up the creek. So this is a deterrent. Basically, it's a deterrent. But it's interesting. It's interesting that this deterrent, because the fear of heaven would be more than stealing. And there's probably a number of different sociological reasons why this is true. I mean, why? Because how many people perjure themselves, and how many people are taking oath in court? Rarely, right? It doesn't affect us on a day-to-day. Does perjury affect us on a day-to-day thing? But with paying taxes and speeding and cheating and dealing honestly, that affects us on a day-to-day basis, right? And we feel, a lot of people feel that they're cheated. Right, the government is against them, or their corporation is against them, or the bank's against them. So they don't mind, they don't mind, you go into a bank and you see a couple of pens, you grab a couple of pens, or you grab this, you grab that, and it belongs to come on, the Wells Fargo, my bank, or whatever it is. How much money they have over there, so they're not going to miss a dozen pens. So this, since it becomes common to us, and we do this on a daily basis, it becomes second nature to us, so we don't even think about all of the ramifications of it. Of course, stealing someone's coat is a little different, but all of these little things become second nature to us. But perjury,
Soap, motel, and towels from hotels.
Towels from hotels.
Really kind of conventional.
Yeah, it was like part of it. Hotels built in their prices, figuring.
You're not supposed to take the soap.
Right? Yeah. I don't get that. What are you going to leave the soap for? What? And the hotel here has now they just put in about a half a year ago a little sign telling you how much they're going to charge you, because they're going to check the room, and if any of these things are missing, they're charging your credit card. Yeah. So if you're missing, if the TV is gone, it's $1,000. If the bed sheet is gone, it's $500. If a towel is gone, it's $35. They have a whole list of everything. The coffee maker, $100. That's what it is. Because why? Because like in the olden days, like you said, it was part of the agreement was, okay, you know what, we'll pay $80 for a night, but that includes taking 4 towels. That was obvious. Only the high class, if you went to a Ritz-Carlton or a Four Seasons, and they had those glorious, what do you call this? Robes, the bathrobe, so they would say, be careful because we're going to check and then we're going to charge. But on a regular hotel, if you went to Holiday Inn, of course you do. That's why you go to everybody's bathrooms in America. They have Holiday Inn towels. That was part of the course. You took the towels, you took the soap, you took everything that moved. But perjury. Who would think of perjury? You think of going into court and perjuring yourself. That's for politicians or professional baseball players. Yeah. When in front of Congress, they're perjurers. But the average guy doesn't perjure themselves, right? So that's why, and it is true, because you know what? You take the average person, if they drag you into court, you'd be nervous, right? And they make you stand in front of the judge and raise your right hand, you think twice about what you're saying, right? You're not going to be so flippant like you're going to be here in this class. You think twice, the whole scenario, and they tell you before, the judge warns you. The Bible, they hold the Bible there, and the judge warns you before. Remember, you're under oath, and what you can say could be held against you, and the government is sitting over there across from the thing, and you're sweating, and I don't even know why I'm here. I don't even know the defendant. I don't know anything, but they ask you questions, and you have to be a real bald-faced lawyer to do that, right? Anyways.